Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here and excited to be part of yet another Nanit Symposium. And I'd like to really thank the organizers for inviting me to speak. So, well, human adults spend about 30% of their days asleep. We all know this, third of our lives statistics. For school-aged kids, this value rises to 40%, and infants spend 65% of their days sleeping. And, if we give Mother Nature some credit here, there must be something pretty important going on to justify sleep taking up such massive chunks of our time. Or as Alan Racksteffen put it, if sleep does not serve an absolutely vital function, then it is the biggest mistake the evolutionary process has ever made. And, we do give evolution some credit here. So we guess that there is a good reason for why we sleep. And many theories throughout the past decades have tried to provide answers to this fundamental question of why. Beginning with etological theories postulating that sleep enhances our chances of survival, keeps us out of harm's way at night when there are predators around that have much better night vision than us, or by helping us conserve our energy for the daytime. Restoration and growth theories that align with the common saying that if you go to sleep, you'll wake up feeling better in the morning. These theories emphasize sleep's role in developing and maintaining and restoring the cells in our bodies, eliminating toxins in our brains, promoting growth, and so forth. And the third family of theories, the brain plasticity theories, highlight sleep roles in regulating brain connectivity, so facilitating learning and memory consolidation. So obviously, sleep is important, for our survival, for our health, for our optimal functioning. And we're still uncovering its role and the influence of sleep in different contexts. And today, what I want to focus on is the context of parenting, and specifically, of course, this is a Nanit Lab Symposium, parenting of young infants and specifically also infants with sleep problems. So research has demonstrated that there are negative consequences of parent sleep loss and infant sleep problems on parent sleep and on parents, and that includes poor physical health, poor cognitive and behavioral functioning. So, for example, we published a study last year demonstrating that mothers of infants with sleep problems performed significantly worse on a driving simulation task compared to mothers of infants who sleep well and childless control. So that's just one example of where sleep loss could have a negative effect on parents, but also, of course, on their parents' emotional kind of profile. We know that sleep loss has been associated with increased distress, with psychopathology, particularly with stress, depression, and anxiety in parents. And an aspect of this issue that's received less attention is the link between sleep in parents and the parent-infant relationship. So cross-sectional studies have linked poor maternal sleep with lower maternal bonding to their infant, decreased sensitivity, increased negative feelings such as frustration and anger, kind of tapping into the last presentation here, which emphasized the role and the importance of anger in this context. And actually, this all connects together because Nia Tikotsky was the first presenter, and just last year, Tikotsky and her team, Professor Tikotsky and her team, published a study in sleep, testing the longitudinal links between parent sleep and parental emotions toward their infants, including anger, frustration. And what they showed was that actigraphic maternal fluctuations in nightly sleep quality predicted lower levels of patience and more anger towards the infant the following day. So variations in maternal sleep quality predicted next day changes in how the mother felt toward her infant. And this was a really cool and novel study that documented these effects in 151 families. And building on these findings, we wanted to add the infants into this dynamic. So We wanted to ask what role does infant sleep play, and also kind of connecting to other presentations that other speakers that have already spoken today, we wanted to add fathers into this mix. So not focus only on mothers, but actually on both parents. So our research questions were, first of all, does parent sleep predict next day parent-infant bonding? So basically, do these links replicate in a sample of mothers and fathers? Our second question was, does infant sleep predict next day parent-infant bonding? So when infants don't sleep well, we know that there's an impact on their behavior, their regulation, their affect. So we expected that poor infant sleep would predict more negative feelings and a lower sense of bonding towards the infant the next day. And our third question was, does parent sleep mediate the link between infant sleep and parent-infant bonding? So we wanted to test the kind of mediational pathway through which poor infant sleep predicts poor bonding by impinging upon parent sleep. And to test these questions, we were lucky enough to be able to use auto-videosomnography, which, as others said, is an objective measure of infant sleep based on computer vision technology. And you're already familiar with this exciting tool, but I'll just kind of briefly say how really incredible it is for us to be able to collect naturalistic, non-intrusive infant sleep-wake data, and on a really large scale. As you'll see, the samples are big, which is really, really novel and very helpful for us to answer these research questions. So for this study, we recruited 844 parents of infants aged 4 to 18 months. They were all users of the Nanit camera monitor, all residing in the US. Most were mothers, but we did have 169 fathers, which was 21% of the sample. And most families had moderate to high household incomes and education levels. The design was longitudinal, so parents completed online diaries at 3 time points, so for 3 single nights and next day, the next day after the night. So these were 3 Sundays, each 1 week apart. Parents could complete the survey, the online survey, between 6 p.m. and 12 a.m. So they had a very limited time frame because we wanted to reduce recall bias. We wanted them to really report on what happened the previous night and the day subsequent that just followed that night. And parents reported on their last night's sleep as they would on a sleep diary. They reported on their bonding with their infant during that same day. So we used kind of like a modified version of the PBQ, the postpartum bonding questionnaire, asking about your feelings toward the infant that same day. And we also asked them to complete the DAS-21 to assess their depression, anxiety, and stress levels and demographic items so that we can control for those. And in terms of infant sleep, we collected their Nanit sleep metrics for each of the assessment nights. So these parents consented, of course, to use their infant sleep data. Now, we're still in the process of analyzing these data, so I'm going to really present some very preliminary results today. For the first question, we found that, as expected, parent sleep indeed significantly predicted next day parent-infant bonding. So this was true for parent total sleep duration and for the number of nighttime awakenings, so for both sleep duration and quality. And it was in line with previous findings attesting to these predictive links between better maternal sleep and warmer or more kind of closer bonding emotions toward the infant the next day. Our second question asked whether objectively measured infant sleep predicted parent-infant bonding the next day. And here we didn't find a significant association, not for TST and not for nighttime awakenings, which was a bit surprising, and we still kind of have thoughts about that. There may be several explanations. For example, it might be that a more difficult night for the baby could lead to, on the one hand, anger, frustration, and poor parental sleep, which makes parents possibly less regulated. But on the other hand, if you spent a night kind of soothing your infant, and maybe it was a difficult night for that infant, or maybe you kind of invested a lot of your energy into kind of being with the infant that night, that could actually elicit maybe greater empathy or a stronger bond in some parents. So that might be one reason that explains why we don't find an association here. But still thinking about that, and if you have thoughts, we'd love to hear them. And as for our third research question, given that the link between infant sleep and parent-infant bonding, those links weren't significant, we still ran this analysis because we were curious to see what we find, but we consider it exploratory. The mediational pathway wasn't significant for sleep duration, but it was we did find an indirect effect for nighttime awakenings, which is what you see here on the right. So we still need to look further into these links and understand what role and kind of how these factors interact and interplay. To kind of sum up, parent sleep duration and quality predicted next day parent-infant bonding. Infant sleep wasn't associated with next day bonding. And while there are many strengths to this study, a very large sample, objective assessment of infant sleep, inclusion of fathers, there are some limitations that, of course, include the fact that parent sleep and parent-infant bonding were both reported by parents, and they were reported at the same time. And also, we have this issue of generalizability. So the sample was high SES, as we get many times using these samples. And so future studies are needed to still explore these mechanistic pathways by which sleep and caregiving may impact each other. One of those could be infant and parent emotion regulation that we didn't really test in this study, but we might in the future. So I want to thank my dear partners in research, Dr. Natalie Barnett and Dr. Marcella Lucchini. And I want to thank you for your attention. And as Liat before me, I also would like to end this talk on a more personal note with a hope for an end to the terrible war that my country is involved in. And hopefully with the help of the international community, I do still wish for Jewish and Palestinian people to come to agreements to bring home the hostages that are still held by Hamas, to put an end to the violence, and to find a solution that will allow us to live in peace side by side. Thank you.
Thanks, Michal. We really appreciate that, and we all echo that sentiment. So thank you so much. I was so excited to see those results. I was surprised to see that the infant sleep finding, but excited. Yeah, it's surprised to see the infant sleep finding, but happy to see that there was something there on the parent side. And we have a question in the chat that I would love to ask you. Parents reported their sleep from Saturday night and bonding on Sunday, but the infant sleep was measured for Saturday night or Sunday night.
Yeah, for the same night. So for that Saturday night, we measured at the same time. So yep. In terms, it's I think the question of time precedence and the timing here is really important, especially if we're talking about a mediation analysis. So we do have the bonding or the feeling toward the infant that next day, but parent sleep and infant sleep are both assessed on that same night.
Yep.
So that is actually another issue or limitation in a way that we need to think about if we want to look at the kind of the directional or the predictive links between these three factors. So yeah, that's a good question.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you, and excited to see the continued analyses of these data.